All right, everybody, welcome back for day 2 of the side splitter project. Yesterday's video, we left off. We had just finished plastic welding the extender onto the splitter itself. Today, we are going to sand that down and start adding the plastic filler and smoothing that thing out, making it look really nice. So, enough talking, let's get to it. Okay, so because these are, cheap ABS eBay splitters, they aren't perfect. They have a lot of imperfections that do require some correction. So off camera, I was looking at these and I realized that the mold of this splitter starts off at the correct width, but the further down it goes, the wider that it actually got. So that right there, that is the edge where we cut off the tip of the original splitter and we welded on the extender. Now you can see the extender, which is up here, is the same height as the lip of the splitter down here. But for some reason, there's a whole lot of extra ABS at the end of the original splitter. So I taped it off, got a straight line on both sides. I'm gonna get the sander, and the first thing I'm gonna do is sand these smooth and even so they are one uniform width across the entire lip. So I'm gonna do that now. Alrighty, so now that we got the edges even, the same width from the widest portion up, the skinniest, narrowest portion up here, the narrowest portion down here, and even all the way across the plastic welded area, we can now flip this back over flat and focus our attention on sanding this down smoother than it is right now. Ideally, we want this to seamlessly transition into the weld, and then this side to seamlessly transition into the weld. Any shallow points or areas in between can be filled with the plastic filler. First, I need to get these transitions nailed down so I have area to apply the filler without having to sand an overabundant amount. So I'm going to use my DA with the 80 grit that I just used to smooth out the inner areas, and go from there. And always remember, always wear your safety glasses. I went nice and smooth on the top, and I extended the distance of that sanded area about 2 inches beyond the actual welded area that we welded. I did that so that way I have area to apply my filler, so I can go pretty medium thickness in the middle and then feather it out on the edges here without getting onto the gloss, because it's prone to not stick to anything shiny. So you gotta knock that down and rough it up in order for the filler to actually stick. So I'm gonna wipe this down, get all the dirt off of it, and then mix up my filler. When you're dealing with plastics, you don't wanna use a traditional body filler. You wanna use something that's designed for plastics. 2-part epoxy, I've seen people use it's in a 2-part tube. You can get them made by 3M, all types of different brands. What I've actually decided to use is a brand known as Cover Bond. I found them on YouTube actually, and they have a lot of different reviews and videos of their brand and stress tests and all that stuff. So I got the body filler for plastics. This is what I used on the previous splitter, and it worked like a dream. So first thing you got to do Notice I'm wearing a glove because I don't want to get this stuff stuck to my hands because it takes forever to get the crap sanded off. So first thing you want to do is you want to stir this up. You want to make sure that all of this sediment at the bottom of the can gets to the top, so all your activator and everything is all mixed in nice and thoroughly before you actually start to knead it with the hardener. It comes with its own hardener. The brand itself recommends a 2% hardener to however much filler you actually use as the ratio. So I'll show you the ratios in a minute. I need to go buy stirring sticks for right now. I'm using a really cheap paintbrush to stir. I'll get sticks eventually. So I'm going to stir this up. I'm going to lay out my hardener and my filler, show you the ratio, and mix it and knead it with my spreader. This is a spreader cut in half. Some people like to use the full-size spreaders. I personally like to use I like to cut them in half and use half a spreader. I feel like I have a little more positive control and a little more ability to put pressure down when I'm laying down my filler. So this is an actual plastic mixing board that I bought, specifically for mixing. It's reusable. I can use it over and over and over again. You don't ever want to mix body filler and hardener on cardboard because the cardboard will actually soak up some of the chemicals from the two, and you may not get a good thorough mix. So you can have two options. You have a hard plastic panel that you can buy that you can mix on. The other option is a piece of it's a set like this. So it's a series of little thin pieces of paper that are resistant to the chemicals bleeding into it and soaking into it. And whenever you're done with a sheet, you can just take it, rip that sheet off, and you got a brand new sheet underneath. This is a little more costly and it's not reusable, which is why I tend to go to this as my go-to. Unless this is really dirty and I forgot to clean it, then I'll switch over to the paper one. All right, stay tuned. Never lay out more than you think you might need, because if you don't use it all, you're gonna waste it. You can't put it back. You can always mix smaller amounts over and over again until you get the amount that you need for the job. Don't ever mix too much. Again, last thing, ratio is dependent also on temperature. So today it's relatively cool, humidity's low, so I put a little more hardener because I want the filler to harden a little bit faster to, cut down some of the wait time. So the more hardening you put in, the faster it's going to cure. So just be mindful of that as well. So when mixing, you want to make sure that you thoroughly mix every ounce of your filler in with the hardener. You're going to notice that the hardener gives a blue tint to the filler. What you want to do is you want to knead the filler over itself. This also helps eliminate any air bubbles that may be inside the filler when you go to apply it. So in order to make sure that everything lays nice and even, you want to start with firm pressure. Start off at the furthest side, apply firm pressure all the way through, releasing that pressure at the end. Apply it all the way through, and then release that pressure as you get toward the end. That'll help in keeping the filler applied thick in the middle and evenly blended at the end, so you don't have as much sanding to do at the end. But again, you want to make sure that you push nice firm pressure to get that filler down into any of the little pits or recesses that are left over. And this isn't going to be a one and done process. You may have to do this 2 or 3 times depending on how much buildup you actually have to create. Go and grab some more. Again, start hard, loosen up, and then release, going toward the middle. And do the same thing on this corner that I did on the other side. Try to clean up your edges on the underside where you don't plan on having filler, just because any less sanding you have to do, the better. I want to make sure that my body filler has had plenty of time to dry and it's thoroughly dry before I start sanding. To test that, I like to test the spreader first. If the filler comes off the spreader clean, then I know that the body filler is hard enough for me to start sanding on without it gumming up the sandpaper or coming off in chips. So I'm going to grab, give it a pull. That came off smooth and even. And if I flex the other side also comes off pretty smooth and even all the way through. And then whatever's left, I can just push it off with my thumb. So yeah, based on that, I'm going to say the body filler is ready to sand. I'm going to start with 80 grit on my DA. Once I get it somewhat smooth at that, I'm going to drop down to 180. I'm going to hit it with 180 and then finish it up again with 220. Hopefully, after 220, we'll be able to see if there's any low spots that need filled still, if there's any areas that I didn't apply enough pressure and there's indentations that I blatantly missed. We'll see from there. So I'm going to put you on time lapse and go through this process, and I'll show you the end result. Wipe it off here, get a real good look. So our edges are feathered on both ends. That's pretty nice right there. That's good. This outside lip is feathered along this way, but there is some issues going on right in here. We're gonna have to add a little more filler and probably sand this down by hand to build these low spots in and build up that little tiny indentation right there on the corner, and then round out these edges perfect, because right now they're kind of angled off from the DA. On the other side, feathering's nice. It's even and smooth all the way through. Again, same as on the other side. Got a little indentation right here and right there. So I'll mix up another little batch of filler for these two sides. And I'll spare you the details of watching that occur since you just saw the body filler process. So I'll cut back to after the filler has cured. I mixed the second coat of filler. I already applied it, it's hardened. Now I'm gonna take the same round sand disc that I was using on the DA and my sanding block. The yellow is soft, the black is hard. Just gonna take the paper and lay it on top of the black hard side of the sanding block. So that way when I start to sand, I sand evenly across the entire surface area, and I don't push in too hard in one location with my fingers. Now I'm going to start at the top corner. I'm just going to curve and arch my way down around the edge, and then come up from the bottom. Keep matching that curve too. Alright, that'll do for now on that side. Let me switch your hand and go to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and start upping the sandpaper from 120 to 220. I'm going to put it on time lapse again so you don't have to hear me talk the whole time. And then you'll see the end result of this little segment here when it's all done. So stick around. Alrighty, so here is the result after 2 layers of filler. Everything is smooth. I know you see coloration differences in here, but it is smooth across all 3 areas. It's nice and even. The curved edges are all rounded and even. I'm going to get my glaze putty that I'm going to be using for this. Mix my glaze up and then lay the glaze down. I'll show you the glaze I'm going to be using and then jump into it. So stay tuned. So the glaze that I'm using for this project, I'm using U-Pol's Dolphin glaze. I decided on Dolphin glaze because the reviews of it stated that it was a very flexible glaze compared to other different brands, and that it worked best with plastics. It's ultra fine, so it's easy to sand, and it comes with its own hardener, just like everything else. Here is what I'm going to be using, my amount of glaze and the hardener ratio. I'm going to mix this up, and next time you see it, it will be spread on the splitter. The glaze is on, it's hardened. I'll zoom in so you can see. Pardon the little issues here and there. I took too long setting up the camera, and halfway through laying it, it started to harden, so I had to mix up a new batch. So, you know, if you're doing this, make sure all your equipment's good to go before you start. Otherwise, you're going to waste material that way as well. So, I'm going to sand this down, and you'll see what it looks like when it's all said and done. There we have it. So it's all cleaned up. Gonna spray the primer down. So we're gonna leave it there for the day. The primer is drying, and tomorrow, hopefully, I can come back out, wet sand that primer down, get it smooth, get it even, Scotch-Brite the skirt the rest of the way, get it all dull, wash it, rinse it, dry it, and hopefully tomorrow we'll be laying down some paint on the second splitter. So, again, if you're enjoying the process, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to follow along with the rest of the project and the installation. So, with that, have a great day, and, you know, be safe.